Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are talking today about Stranger Things Season 4 because we kind of binged the first half. This is about the first half. We're going to do a follow-up video about the second half of the season because they split it up into two parts. I have no idea why. It's certainly generating hype, so maybe that's the point since Netflix kind of not doing so hot lately, at least in the press. I don't know how they actually are financially. Well, I guess their stocks dropped a lot. Anyways, Stranger Things Season 4 is very good. The best season for me, even better than the first season.
It's so freaking good.
Yeah.
So good. And I just want to rewatch it. And I'm really excited.
Yeah, we'll do the follow-up on those.
And then we'll do the follow-up next week. So it'll be 2 weeks full of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
But we're just so addicted with this season that I don't think we have the brain capacity to talk about something else right now.
Let's talk about what we like about this season, especially compared to previous seasons. I feel like there's no padding. And if there is padding, it's very light. And sometimes it was a chore for me to get through. Even the first season, I felt like there's more of a 3-episode story here, but they're dragging it out, you know? Whereas this season, I feel like there's so many different stories and plot lines coming together. It's so many characters, different stories going on at once that it feels like, okay, this is an appropriate amount of space, you know? That feels like we're reading a novel or something. And I think we were watching Carson Runquist's video about Stranger Things Season 4. He compared it to like Infinity War, where these different stories. We have, you know, Hopper in Russia. We have the kids in California, and we have the kids in Hawkins. So there's like different adventures.
I mean, there's so much more to even what you just stated.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union in the play, Alaska as a location.
Well, I just mean in terms of like the main stories going on. We have Hopper getting rescued, which involves Alaska. It involves, you know, hello? Do you need something? We have Hopper in Alaska. We have the the Soviet Union, that's all one story. We have the kids in, Mike and the other kids and 11 in California. And then we have later on 11's story
in another place, which we shouldn't reveal right now.
Because we're not going to do spoilers until later. So we're just going to talk about our reactions, why we think you should watch Stranger Things. And I'm no huge Stranger Things fan. I don't think I ever have been. It's just kind of been like, okay, it's there. But I'm actually really passionate about the season. I think you are too, right?
I was very passionate about the first season. I really loved the first season, but then second and third season was very dry for me, and I wasn't a Stranger Things fan at all the second or third season. This season, it just turned it all around for me, and honestly, like I would say, if you're one of those people, because I know a lot of people felt like season 2 or 3 weren't the best, and so thus they didn't watch a lot of episodes from there. If you're one of those people, I honestly think that if you just watch a summary video for season 2 and 3 and then watch season 4, it will be fine as long as you watch the first season completely, because in a lot of ways it's a prequel to the first season, and you'll know why in the spoiler section. And it's so funny because we're talking about Barry, and in a lot of ways, of course, it's a completely different show than Barry, but the way that the writers strategized different plot lines, I felt like was similar to Barry in the fact that like there's a lot going on, but they're all action filled. And also they're kind of like one intense moment to another. Of course, difference is that Stranger Things, literally each episode is a movie.
It's so long.
It's so long. And sometimes you notice it, sometimes you don't. But nonetheless, like I felt like I couldn't wait to watch the next episode. Jake and I binged it within 2 days.
I was really intimidated by the lengths of the episodes because already I'm like, this show feels padded out sometimes, and I'm like, oh, come on, give me a break. Until people started talking on like social media about how it's actually very good, and talking about, you know, Kate Bush and running up that hill.
I had to force you to watch the first episode.
You did,
So let's not talk about like your enthusiasm.
Well, no, I was like, maybe we should watch it because it's like, you know, maybe people will want to watch a video about it if we watch it. And I was like, but I really want to get into this.
You had a very critical mindset, I suppose is a way of saying it, before we watched it. And then once we started watching it the first season, you were very enthusiastic about watching more. I
felt like a lot of the point of, especially the first season, it was the nostalgia, you know, and just like, hey, it's the 80s, isn't that cool? And we're going to do E.T., we're going to do the Goonies, like, and just all these elements. Like, it's fun, but it also felt like, well, it doesn't need to be this long, doesn't need to take itself so seriously sometimes. So Those were things that bothered me. Now I feel like the 80s is just kind of a backdrop, multiple stories, and it feels like we're building towards something. Obviously, I can't say what it is we're building towards or if it's the payoff is going to be worth it, but it feels like we're building towards something great. And based on some setups and payoffs they've already established in the show, I have a feeling that the last 2 episodes are going to be very good.
Yes, and the trailer for the last 2 episodes is very enticing.
They're doing a lot of good setup and payoff, and it feels like our time is being rewarded.
Oh, so before we get into spoiler session, let's talk about acting.
Sure.
Because when we were watching it, we spoke a lot. You specifically spoke a lot about different actors and the way that they portrayed it, who was more believable, who kind of was a little static in their gestures. So why don't you talk more about that?
I don't mean to be rude. I mean, I just think like Millie Bobby...
I don't agree, by the way.
Well, you have differing opinions, but I think that to me, the biggest weakness in the show is Mike Finn Wolfhard. Just feels like he's like in a high school movie. Like every time he's on screen, he is very distracting to me. I feel like he's not bringing. And you say like you think it's fine because it seems like he's just an awkward high school kid, which is what he's supposed to be playing.
Because if you remember season 1, he is that awkward. They do get bullied. He is a awkward kid who, even in season 4, is not the cool kid. I don't think I'm spoiling anything by stating that. You know, I think all his characteristics play into it. So whether it's a choice or whether it's just something that he does, I think that it kind of adds more depth to the character rather than takes it away. But that's a contrasting opinion from yours.
Well, I just think that he does a lot of stuff that young actors do. He just delivering the lines the same every time, kind of having a confused look, like when they're trying to emote.
To be honest, though, there's a lot of confusing things happening.
There are Stranger Things here.
This is called Stranger Things.
I don't know
what kind of look you want him to have. Confident.
I want him to maybe
stranger than Strange Things, but
in a scene with Millie Bobby Brown, who is like the standout performer, I think she's really good. He looks so gone, like just not even. There's no comparison there, I think.
I think that, like, all the kid actors were really good. I sometimes get annoyed by the Nancy character.
Her character or the actor?
I guess her character more so than the actor.
I don't have any problem with her acting.
Because she gets she's sometimes just annoying to watch because she's very repetitive with each season, the way she acts. It's always like the love triangle that she is, although I totally ship her and a specific guy that I'll talk about in the spoiler section. I just think that she just acts the same way she did in season 1 in a lot of ways. And I don't know, maybe it's just me being personal that like I don't like people like her sometimes because it's just more condescending.
So basically,
maybe
you have a problem with her character.
I have a problem with her character. I can't stand her character very much.
I don't mind her character. I think that you're probably right where it seems like she doesn't have as much to do this season, it feels like.
It feels like she doesn't have, okay, you know what my problem is with her? It feels like she doesn't have much to do. Like she has great ideas. She's a group team member and everything else, but I feel like she takes more credit than she gives. And I think it's more not the actress itself. I think it's more of the characterization.
Basically, you just don't like people like her.
You said it, not me.
All right, so who do you like? Who are your favorite characters this season? Who has the best stories going for them right now?
I like Mike, and I like 11.
Well, I like 11's story too. There's a lot of flashbacks going on with 11, which fortunately tie in, and it's not just repetitive. A lot of times I think shows use flashbacks as just a way to show information we already know, or like we have to be shown everything, even though sometimes just telling is easier. I know that's like a thing people have with storytelling, show not tell, but sometimes you have to tell, and it just makes sense not to show. But that's a sidetrack. And I think in the video we watched, Karsten Rundquist did a great, video essay talking about it. Explained it as like there's multiple genres going on, and like each story has their own genre, and that's what I like. Instead of just being like an 80s movie, whatever that is, they're doing like a prison escape.
80s show, you mean?
Or like an 80s show, yeah. They're doing it like a prison escape. escape
Yeah.
drama. Which is very intense. What is like? I can't believe it's Stranger Things. Whenever we're watching Hopper, in prison and all that, it's kind of goofy, over the top, but also like very dark and
Stranger Things.
it's great. Yeah, it's great. I like it. And then they're doing a road adventure with Mike and the other guys in California. There's like superhero training, with 11.
Before we get into the spoiler section, what would you rate it?
Stranger Things season 4 is like an 8.
Yeah, I would say season 4 is only
But
season 4.
That's going without seeing the rest of it. Of course.
Season 4, without the last 2 episodes is a 9.
Okay.
Because I just want to rewatch it, and whenever I want to rewatch things without seeing the ending, I always think it's a positive, good thing. Now, with that said, let's move on to the spoilers.
My favorite part about starting the series was just revisiting all the characters and where they are. I thought they just did a great job of setting up the character dynamics in the different schools they're in. That was so captivating on its own and very charming that I was kind of more interested in that than the paranormal stuff going on. And I think that's a great thing, in a show like this. There's a new generic bad guy named Vecna, which they just named because of a D&D thing. Oh, I forgot to mention, standout character for me is Eddie, the D&D guy.
Oh, really? He was good, yeah.
I really like the energy he brings to the show. So our new generic bad guy is Vecna. At least I thought he was generic at first. I wasn't really interested in who the bad guy is. The upside down, weird things are happening, some violent, gruesome stuff is occurring that is actually a lot more graphic than I expected. At the same time, 11 doesn't have her powers. Hopper, who we thought was dead, is actually captive in a prison in Russia.
Did we really think he was dead, though?
No. But he's captive in the Soviet Union. Joyce is getting given a package, basically, that Hopper is alive, and they kind of go off on a limb to try to find him, which is a whole adventure involving plane crashes, insane stuff happening. That somehow they're able to keep it light and kind of fantastic, but somewhat believable in a way. Like, it's not believable, like it's so ridiculous and over the top, but they keep it somewhat grounded.
Yeah, they keep the danger alive. What I did think was over the top and unbelievable was that Joyce would just leave her kids behind.
It's the 80s. You just leave your kids behind, whatever. She didn't know that they'd be in more danger than she was going. She's going to be in a lot of danger, but it's like she didn't know all this was going on. They don't have phones. They're not texting each other, The landlines are all blocked or whatever. So
it's busy, or something.
Mike is coming down from Hawkins to go visit 11 in California, and it's really kind of sweet and sad. I think the actors really do this well of showing how 11 is bullied relentlessly. There's some awkward moments, really tough moments, but 11 is like trying to pretend like she's actually popular and friends with the popular kids.
For Mike.
In order to impress Mike. Yeah. And Mike is like, well, why would you do that? Like, I'm a nerd. I get bullied. And she's like, no, you don't get it.
Well, let me just clarify. So 11 is sending Mike letters in the beginning of the story where she is telling him about this great picturesque life that she lives. She has best friends who are popular girls. In reality, however, these popular girls are ruthlessly mean. They make her cry. They bully her super badly. 11 eventually just snaps, and she ends up hurting one of the girls who, like the mean girl leader.
It's funny because we were saying she needs to just sock her in the face.
Yeah,
they are being so mean.
These kids were so brutal.
And then, of course, 11, all this rage suppressed, grabs a roller skate and bashes her head in with it.
This is when I hated Mike's character, not the actor, his character.
Yeah.
Because he, instead of supporting 11, seeing how badly she was taunted in one scene alone, which was bad enough, he, instead of supporting her, kind of judges her and is more acts like, oh man, you turned violent, what's wrong with you? And at the same time, 11 has flashbacks back to her time at the laboratory, where she was stuck before season 1, and this is why I say earlier in the non-spoiler season that it's kind of like a prequel to season 1, because you have a lot of flashbacks of 11's time in the laboratory before she escaped.
Yeah, and the flashback at the start of the show gives us the impression that 11 killed a ton of people at the facility where she was held, when she was young. So that's what we think happened. Of course, that's changed later on when we get the full picture of the flashback. So 11 is kind of battling this feeling like she's a monster and feeling like she's not good enough for Mike, how she doesn't fit in with anyone. And Mike says something to her along the lines of like, you know, you're amazing. You're a superhero. And it's like, she goes, not anymore, because she doesn't have her powers anymore. And she feels like, oh, maybe the only reason Mike likes me is because of my powers.
Yeah. And then she ends up, the girl who she hurts ends up pressing charges against 11, and she goes to jail. They get her thumbprint. Through her thumbprint, these two different competing government agencies try to find 11. In a higher working of things, 11 does need her power in order to basically kill this demon guy.
Yeah, Vecna.
Yeah, in Vecna.
But, you know, that's kind of like where the show is heading. We feel like, okay, she's going to get trained and people are after her, but she needs to get her powers back so that she can defeat Vecna and the bad government organization, you know, branch of the military, whatever. This is kind of like the progress that we're going on. While at the same time, the kids in Hawkins are trying to solve the murders, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with like mob violence. This guy Eddie, who is in a D&D, who leads a D&D
Dungeon
club.
and Dragons.
Yeah, parallels very much with like the reality in the 80s. There was like the satanic panic, and people were very scared about like Dungeons and Dragons and like the effects movies were having on kids. All this very conservative shift, you know, in the 80s, and a lot of fear mongering. And so it was kind of very realistic that Eddie, because this girl, popular girl at school, got brutally killed in his home, in his trailer, it's very obvious why he's the number one suspect. He flees, and so the kids are trying to protect him because they're like, hey, this is just a regular Monday for us, you know, crazy demon stuff going on in Hawkins, we can help. Basically, there's this kind of cult and cult leader who, interestingly enough, reminds me a lot of Tom Cruise and looks like Tom Cruise. He's really good, but he's like the popular basketball player. And he...
Amazing motivational speaker.
Yeah, we're like, oh, he'd be a great politician, but he basically motivates his basketball team to go and try to hunt down Eddie because they're like, this is the guy. He's a demon. He loves demons,
because
you know?
he gets triggered by his girlfriend's death.
Yeah. He's trying to avenge her, so he rounds up, you know, the basketball team, and eventually at like a town hall meeting with the sheriff, the new sheriff, he like does a speech and convinces the town to like go out trying to hunt Eddie down, and it's like,
and not just Eddie, everyone
in the club,
club,
including Dustin.
And the reason why is because when he hunts Eddie down and he actually ends up finding Eddie, one of his teammates ends up getting killed
by Vecna,
the same way his girlfriend was killed and others were killed, where Vecna breaks their bones
and their eyes,
dislocates them, and then gouges their eye out inside out or something, and then it's just a very horrific looking like death. Basically, this guy sees his teammate now floating in the midair, in the middle of confronting Eddie. It's
just the three of them out on the water, and then finally when he's talking to the sheriff, we think finally he's going to be like, oh, this isn't Eddie, this is some supernatural thing. And he's like, it's definitely Eddie now. He's the demon. He's possessed. Like he's working with the devil.
And everyone in the Dungeon and Dragon team is in this cult, and they're all, so every single one of the characters that we've known, grown up with, to love, is now in danger, not only from this basketball team player and his teammates, but he ends up being so good at his motivational speech that he convinces the whole town to look for these kids and hunt them down because he convinces them that they are doing the work of the devil. So it's just amazing. Not too far off, I guess, from reality of what probably would have happened in that situation. I thought it was very realistic.
I'm very excited to see what happens with them and when they confront, you know, the Hawkins kids. Let's talk a little bit about Max, who I thought was a standout character this season, who is being targeted by Vecna, and we kind of learn who Vecna targets and how it happens. They start getting headaches, they start seeing visions of a grandfather clock and all that stuff. So Max realizes like, oh, this is me, you know, this is going to happen to me. She's been depressed because her brother Billy died in season 3. So she's trying to fight this like force. And I think it's a good metaphor for like depression and, you know, fighting self-harm and all that kind of stuff, you know. And I thought that was a very good metaphor that Vecna kind of represents this creeping darkness. And her friends are able to save her, with music. What was that? Is there your phone?
Yeah.
Oh. And this is like the most iconic scene, I think, in the season. Everyone was talking about it. Kate Bush's song was like played a million times. It was like a #1 hit again after all these years, running up that hill, where they save her. She's floating in the air, and
such a good scene. Yeah. You have to, if you don't watch any other episode, watch that scene, because I don't know, I'm obsessed with that scene. Mm-hmm. She is literally
she's saved by her friends. It's very moving,
She's saved by her friends, and also this is a pivotal part of the plot, because this is when she discovers she ends up drawing different things that she saw in her vision while she was about to get killed. And Nancy actually ends up solving the puzzle of, credit to her, this is one of those credit to her moments where...
You gotta hand it to her.
Yeah, I gotta hand it to her.
Nancy, who everyone
hates. That annoying
Nancy. Because she's such a go-getter and wants to go solve things.
Okay, am I being a hater? Is that what you're saying?
Why don't you like her? She's smart. She's like...
It's because... Okay, you know why I don't like her, to pivot off? It's because in season 1, even though she's with Steve, she ends up developing feelings for Jonathan. In season 2 and beyond, she gets with Jonathan and she stays with Jonathan. Now she wants to go back to Steve again, and that is literally why I get annoyed at her, because it's this stupid love triangle that I hate. I'm like, freaking make your decision. Why are you with Jonathan if you like Steve? That is why I don't like her. I liked her a lot in the first season when she was just like, okay, you know what? I don't like Steve. Or like in second season when she's like, well, I don't like Steve. I'm going to go with Jonathan, whatever. But like, it's like she's going back and forth. And to be honest, I like her and Steve together the most. I don't like her and Jonathan together. But it's like, lady, make a freaking decision and stop freaking like running from your feelings. You are annoying.
Well, I think things have changed too, right? Because Jonathan is like, I don't think he's doing enough for her. I think he's hiding out from her and clearly doesn't want to continue the relationship. And he's not being honest with her. So I think that she's sensing that. He's just not being honest with her about not wanting to go to college with her. I think they're both in
denial. I think Jonathan and Nancy are both in denial about their relationship.
Yeah, I think it's over. Unless Jonathan finds new motivation in life, because he's just like has the stoner friend and he just wants to chill out.
Well, Jonathan, it just makes it seem like Jonathan's attraction towards Nancy was only because she's driven, and
he has no drive himself.
But Steve and Nancy, I feel like always went together, and I kind of just feel like there's enough plot points that I don't need this love triangle. Like, I just kind of like, it's fine for her to leave Jonathan. In fact, I endorse it, but I don't like how she's kind of like always playing mind games about that. It just makes me feel like repetitive to season 2, which is why I don't like her character. Like I said, that was a spoiler thing that I wanted to state. But going back to Nancy, yes, she's a very much of a go-getter. I like her character in every other way except for the boy part. She does solve this puzzle of the drawings from Max's vision, and she realizes that it's of a house, and not only any house, it's a Victor's house.
Serial killer.
Who is thought to be a serial killer. But in fact, he was... Big spoiler. Should we actually say the whole thing?
Well, I think we should talk about the clues that lead up to it. So this is one of the clues. We learn about Victor, the serial killer, who people think killed his whole family. And we find out that, no, actually, they were a victim of this same Vecna that's targeting the town now. Well, why would Vecna target this one family in the 50s, go away, and now is back targeting teenagers again? That's an interesting thing. So we learn...
Vecna is in the Upside Down.
Yeah, well, Vecna's in the Upside Down. So we learn about this family, and things finally start to come together, and I think they did a great job of tying it together, of Eleven's story and her flashbacks, along with the main story of Vecna, and it gave it way more purpose and weight. It wasn't just some random baddie in the Upside Down. This is a conflict that's been going on for years. This is something that's very personal now between Eleven and Vecna. So we learn in the last episode about...
Not the last episode, but the last...
No, the last one of this section, episode 7, when Eleven was young, when she thinks that she killed all of her peers, basically. What really happened is she helped this guy who worked at the facility escape and get out, because he was telling her, like, oh, it's bad here. Well, she was right, it's abusive, horrible situation, but she thinks this guy is good. He's on my side. I'm going to help him escape. she does that. And as a response, we learned that this person is actually the famed or notorious number one, because all the kids are like numbered, you know, and she's 11. This is number one, who was apparently the very first paranormal kid that was used in this, you know, study and then like recreated. And he is evil. And basically we learned that he is the one who actually killed Victor, his dad, and his whole family, and made it look like Victor was a serial killer. He enjoys killing animals. He enjoys all this stuff. And he finally freed of this thing that was in his neck that was like restricting his powers. He kills everyone there and almost kills 11. We learned that 11...
Such a good scene.
It was great. It was fantastic because and I remember like right when it was happening, I was like, well, I kind of predicted that this guy was number one, but then when it was going on, I'm like, how does this tie into Vecna? How does this tie into something? And then I'm like, he's Vecna. And then you were like, oh, yeah, you're right. And
yeah,
I felt really good.
Yeah, you were
figuring
right.
that out. And then they go and explain and show it. I don't often predict things well. You're usually the one predicting the end of things.
I was wrong about my predictions, but yeah.
Anyways, I was very proud of that. And so it was great reveal. They explained it really well, and we established this like first battle between, you know, 11 and Vecna. And she uses her powers to like banish him into the Upside Down and creates the portal, right? Like the first portal into the Upside Down, and opens it up. He's cast in there, and somehow he stayed in there, survived, and
he gets in the vision. He gets electrocuted through lightning.
Something's going on with
which
him,
changes his physical form. And
it's like he becomes part of the Upside Down.
And then he becomes part of it. And then it makes sense and ties everything together, is that this is why he was in the Upside Down before even season 1 events happened. This is why he's able to use his mental powers to literally, his psychic abilities to literally penetrate people or special victims' minds and kill them in that way without actually like physically dragging them down to the Upside Down. And every time he kills a person, a gate opens to the Upside Down. So
yeah, absolutely. And this is all learned at the same time as Nancy and Steve and the others are in the Upside Down. They go through one of the portals, and that's when they figure out there's multiple portals at the sites of where these kids are being killed. Dustin and the others help, you know, get them through. Just great plotting, great planning, great setups and payoffs, you know. You feel like you aren't watching stories that have nothing to do with each other. You feel like it's all coming together towards something essential, that we're learning new things about this world that aren't just random, you know. Feels like there's a lot of purpose going behind it, and like we're going to see a great showdown between these characters. And now we don't just have some generic villain, we have a villain who, like Thanos or somebody, you understand like the conflict, you understand
the genesis of this character too.
There's a lot that we'll have to talk about at the end, and I need to see how it all comes together to really judge the show. I will say this has been great setup, but I'm really ready for payoff. You know, I'm really ready to see how this all comes together, so I'm really excited.
We can't wait to share it with you guys. Leave your comments below.
And let us know what you think will happen. Yeah, let us know, and we're really excited to be watching the second part. So thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.